friend Charlie Marino checks in. Charlie, good buddies with my buddy Anthony Libreri and Al Dones and Howard Beach, and he says you got to go to Eric Ulrich's event. Anyway, I got some sad news before we get to Jay Fiedler. Jay can appreciate this because a lot of the folks, Bernie, that love Jay and Scott really only love them because of their dad, Kenny. And we just spent all this time with Dale Barrett talking about Yogi. Very dear friend of mine and ours. Father's been very, very sick for a long, long time. I just saw him on Monday. His father was still alive. Mike Sullivan lost his dad yesterday.
Oh, my God.
He'd been sick, very sick for a long, long, long time. And then when I saw him Monday at lunch, he was like, my dad's really, really doing poorly. So he did pass away yesterday.
Look at the legacy he left with all his sons.
Four of them that fought in Afghanistan,
right,
Iraq.
Exactly.
Michael's a wonderful kid. Brian was a cop for many, many years. And as Dale was sitting here, Jay, I got to tell you, Jay Fiedler, who was the last quarterback to win a playoff game for the Dolphins, he replaced Dan Marino, had some great seasons in Miami. You know his story. He got to the Jets. He got hurt that game against Jacksonville. Same day Chad got hurt. Had a very, 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 very good NFL career. And we'll get to your camp. But listening to Dale talk about Yogi and hearing from my friend Mike about his dad, I know his father for 45 years. And knowing your father, and I often tell Bernie about the story, how your dad actually took former Knickerbocker Anthony Mason in. It was almost like he had three sons. Your dad, Kenny, was that type of guy.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it's great to be here with you guys, Sid and Bernie. Good morning to both of you. And, my dad was, a longtime basketball coach at Springfield Gardens and Queens. And a lot of the players that came through were in, rough home lives and, or just dysfunctional home lives. And Anthony was one. He grew up with just his mom. Didn't have a dad growing up. And, it was really Anthony's kind of initiative where he started calling Coach Fiedler his dad.
He just said he called him dad.
And Dad did so much for him throughout his high school career, and then it was more when he went into college, and Dad stayed with him.
At no point did your father Kenny say. At no point did Kenny say, "You don't have to call me dad. I'm not your dad." He went with it, right?
No, he was part of the family.
Wow.
He was an older brother to Scott and I. He was, Dad was his dad, and it continues even now. We're still involved with his family. His son Antoine calls me his uncle.
Wow.
So that relationship has been a long time, and Anthony was such a great guy. You hear a lot of the stories, but off the court and out of the limelight, he was one of the most genuine people around, really giving. And we lost a good one a couple of years ago with both my dad and Anthony passed away within about a few months of each other.
Yeah. So before we get to the rest of the conversation, so what you're doing now is you've got this Brookwood camps. Well, my daughter Ava went to a couple of summers ago, and she loved it. And Bernie, your kids would love this too. Your dad was his camp. He ran it. He has since passed away. I saw him up there a couple of summers ago, and your mom. Now you and Scott run the camp. But what makes your camp different, and you're right there by Monticello and Glen Spey, there's a million camps around you. What makes your camp different that no one else does is because of your ties, for example, to the NFL. When little kids like my son are playing football, they may end up catching a pass or getting a pass from Chris Chambers, who was a Pro Bowl wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. A kid who's playing baseball at your camp may very well get instructions from Leo Mazzoni, who was the Braves pitching coach when they had Glavine, Maddox, and Smoltz. You bring these people up because you were a pro athlete. No other camp, as far as I know, does anything like that.
Well, true. Other camps will bring guys in for a day, but they're going to pay them an exorbitant amount, and sometimes those camps are going to charge the kids extra to get lessons with those guys. With us, the celebrities, the coaches that we bring in is all part of our camp. So if you're coming for extended weeks, you get access to all of our academies that these coaches are running. Leo Mazzoni's been with us for a few years. The best pitching coach of all time in the major league, even and your kids can work
even with them. Sports broadcasting. You bring up Adam Schefter, you bring me up, you bring up Rich Ackerman. Even do that.
Yes, and just to segue from Anthony Mason, we were just talking about, this year we got Charles Oakley coming up. former New York Knick. And if you're not going to get the bruiser on one side as a forward, you're going to get the other bruiser, Charles Oakley, one of the toughest guys that the New York Knicks has ever had. And, we're really excited to have him come up this summer. We got great soccer coaches coming back with us again from Manchester United's youth development program.
Wow.
You mentioned our broadcasting program. We got a couple weeks going with that, and we're talking to a number of guys. Obviously, love to have you back up there. Adam Schefter, Steve Levy, Kenny Albert, Rich Ackerman have all been up there, and we expect a number of them to be back this summer. We also have, even for our non-sports broadcast, we have a great dance program as well. We got a dance studio with a former pro ballerina that works with us. So, all of these academies that we run throughout the camp are available to all of our campers. And then what we're doing this year, which is a little bit different, is we're opening up our academies for 1 week for campers that want to come up and just focus specifically on that sport or activity, whether it be basketball, football, baseball, soccer, sports broadcasting, dance. All those opportunities are there for campers to come up for 1 week and take advantage of learning from the best pros out there.
Wow, Jay Fiedler, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. He was as good a guy as your dad, and you're a Long Island guy, Oceanside, yep. Long Island native, good guy. But listen, how do people get more information about the camp?
Well, they could go to our website. It's at brookwoodcamps.com. It's BROOKWOODCAMPS.com. Or they could call us and email us. 516-764-2112 is our office phone, or info@brookwoodcamps.com.
Before you run, I want you to stick around one more segment. There's a lot of issues with anti-Semitism in the country today. Bernie and I talk about it all the time. I know you experience some of that with some of your own teammates with the Miami Dolphins. Plus, you had the very difficult task of replacing a legend in Dan Marino. And you had a dream come true to play for the Jets, and it lasted about 5 minutes. We'll talk more to Jay Fiedler right after these words. Jay Fiedler telling me the first day of camp late this year, June 29th, right before July 4th. But it's time. It is time. Camp time is here. Jay Fiedler, former quarterback, really had a good stay in Jacksonville. And that's kind of how he became a free agent, signing for the Dolphins in 2000 when Damon Huard was already there, the quarterback out of Washington, Bernie, and
right.
The rest is history.
But it was a little bit of drama in your being selected by Coach Wanstead as the head quarterback for the Dolphins back then.
Well, there was a little bit. I went into preseason, throughout most of the off-season workouts. I had done well, and I was working with the first team, but it was still an open competition. And then
it really wasn't. I was doing sports radio in Miami at the time. It was Damon Huard's job. It really was, to your credit, this is a testimonial to you, it really wasn't an open competition. It may have been with Wanstead in camp, but the media had Damon Huard as the heir apparent.
Well, the media had it there, and Dan Marino was endorsing Damon Huard as well during that time. They were good friends. They were teammates from the year before. But I think throughout the preseason,
not just teammates, but Marino got hurt, and Damon went 4-1.
Yep. And throughout the preseason early on, I felt like I was clearly ahead. And then I went into, the first couple of weeks of training camp and had a hip injury that required surgery. So I was out, and I missed 3 of the first preseason games. So there was a lot of questions now of what was going on. Damon went in, he played and didn't solidify himself to become the starter. I came back the last game right off the injury, and to be honest, I didn't have my best game. I was not very sharp coming back first time, but I think all the work that led up to that, from the off season into the preseason, going into that, kind of solidified me in there. And between Coach Wanstead deciding and my teammates, really pushed for me as well. And the rest was history. I went in, started for the next 5 years for the Miami Dolphins.
It was fantastic. And then, of course, being a Long Island kid, you aspired to be a New York Jet head quarterback. You finally make it to the Jets in, I believe, 2005, right?
Yes, correct.
And then you're the backup for Chad Pennington. Of course, Chad gets hurt. You get your big shot. You step onto the field. What happens?
Unfortunately, about 10 plays later, I got injured. And, yeah,
I just remember
I was so ready to coming up here. I was so excited.
So was I.
Grew up in Oceanside. The Jets were right in my backyard. I worked at Hofstra for 2 years. The Jets were right across the street for 2 years during that time. Yeah, I grew up a Jets fan. Richard Todd, Wesley Walker, Ken O'Brien, all those guys back in the late 70s, early 80s. And, to come back and have the opportunity to take over once Chad was hurt, to become the starter and possibly solidify myself for the next, number of years. I was excited to go in. I complete a first down pass on third down as I'm rolling out of the pocket, and I get tripped up. I mean, the guy just barely hits my shoelace as I'm throwing the football, and I just landed the wrong way, like an outfielder diving for a ball with my arm out in front, and my shoulder
that was
just tore up.
And then, Brooks Bollinger became the quarterback. What's ironic is Chad Pennington eventually went down to Miami when Bill Parcells got there, and he made the playoffs, but he didn't win like you won. I mean, you were still the last quarterback to win a playoff game.
He's the only other quarterback to take him to the playoffs.
No, Matt Moore got there, I think.
That's true.
They lost. Right. But you're the only one, the last one to win one. That great game, Lamar Smith had a big effort that day. I just know, Jay, that you had 5. The last season was not great for you, to be honest. But you had 4 or so seasons where you guys were winning 10 games every year. I mean, you had great defenses. You had Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor. But you were putting up some really good numbers. And I remember when you left, I would talk. I'm not going to say their names. But I know some of the guys on those teams. Mm-hmm. And they would always go to the Jewish thing. And it's when you go to Wikipedia, his name, for example, Bernie, it starts off right away, Jewish. He's in the National Jewish Hall of Fame Museum. They make a big deal about that. You never hid the fact that you were Jewish. And unlike other players, when things weren't going great, they never bring up Christianity. But with you, they did bring up your religion. Did you hear some of that stuff? Did you hear it after? Did it bother you?
From teammates, I never heard it.
Okay. I have from former teammates since.
In the locker room, you may have, but they never said it to my face.
Yeah.
And that's, the vast majority of anti-Semitism is going to be behind people's backs. They're not afraid they're afraid to come up and show their true colors right in front of you. But, I felt, and when I first got into the league, I went to the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Philadelphia Eagles, Reggie White had just left the Eagles, but he had a big impact on that locker room, with his background as in Christianity, the minister of defense. Randall Cunningham had just been born again. Herschel Walker was in that locker room. There were a lot of guys that were pretty hardcore Christians in there. And to me, what I found interesting was a lot of them had a lot of interest in Judaism.
Really?
And they were intellectual Christians, what I call it, and they yes, they did want to push it on other people at times, but I think they were truly interested in learning more about. They knew I wasn't converting. They knew I wasn't going born again. And I had some interesting conversations with Randall Cunningham, with Herschel Walker, who were real intellectual guys that really wanted to learn more, and I was really pleased with that and enlightened by that. That guys would reach out and show an interest that way.
That's cool. But you don't feel like any of that stuff, anti-Semitism, Jew hating, whatever, hurt you in your career in any way, shape, or form, or do you?
I don't believe so. I think more so the fact that I came out of the Ivy League and the stigma.
Dartmouth, right?
The stigma there, and just as a player, the stigma was, he's a smart guy, but maybe not as athletic.
Right.
Where I was one of the most athletic guys,
yes.
In the league. The year I went to the combine, I was in top 2 or 3 in all the measurables, athletic wise. But people always came back to, well, he's the smart quarterback. He's the intelligent quarterback.
Like Ryan Fitzpatrick went to Harvard.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Exactly.
Well, you also played most of your career in Miami and New York, so a lot of Jews. It wasn't like you were playing quarterback your whole career in Jacksonville.
Well, 1 year over there in Jacksonville.
I know, and you did great. That's how you got the free agent deal with the Dolphins. But playing in Miami and New York, if they're going to be at least to your face somewhat tolerant.
Well, if you're
those
going
are the cities.
if you're going to be a Jewish quarterback, those are two good cities to be playing in. Yeah, you got a lot of support from the fan base in those cities. That's for sure. And now you got Josh Rosen down there in Miami as well.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that's tremendous. I mean, it was a great situation for him. I think it was a great deal for the Miami Dolphins. They got a steal. They got a guy who
got a raw deal from the Cardinals. So
look, he was in the Cardinals. He had 3 different offensive coordinators in 1 year with the Cardinals, which is crazy. And he showed flashes of playing great, but. I think he's got to get a solid situation, and hopefully Miami is rebuilding right now. They got a new GM, new coach, new everything coming in. They got to upgrade their talent around him, a little bit, but he's got a tremendous situation to go in and really take over down there.
Pretty ironic you just mentioned Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's the quarterback Josh Rosen will try to beat out in Miami to get that starting job. Yes. One more time, Jay, for the folks. I'm telling you, if you're thinking about a camp to send your kid this summer, there's only one. Brookwood Camps. How do they find out more?
Absolutely. BrookwoodCamps.com. BrookwoodCamps.com is our website, or you could call us at 516-764-2112 on our office phone.
Jay Fiedler on the Bernie and Sid Show, former NFL great quarterback. Listen, and a nice guy, great guy. Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for having me here. Always a pleasure.
Great to see you. Say hello to Scott Molly for us. We'll take a short break. We'll wrap up a Bernie and Sid Show on this glorious Wednesday right after these words.
Bernie and Sid in the morning, 77 WABC.